Podcasting from Singapore and broadcasting all around the world. You're listening to the Ignite EdTech Podcast with Craig Kemp, created by an educator for educators and streaming to the world. Now, over to your host, Craig Kemp.
Hello and welcome to episode 108 of the Ignite EdTech Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Kemp, and I'm honoured to have you join us. As most of you know, I continue to work with the incredibly talented Mark Quinn to improve the final audio quality of this podcast. He has his own podcast production studio that provides editing and mastering services to content creators. To connect with Mark, please see the details in the podcast notes below. Last week, I asked you about your current take on conferences and face-to-face learning events. Thank you for sharing. We'll go into your feedback on this later in the episode. This week, I wanted to ask you about how you manage your digital life. What social streams do you use? And how do you stay on top of all of your tasks, tools, and connections? I'd love to hear from you. Please share with us via our Ignite EdTech social streams. A tool that has positively impacted the authentic and purposeful use of technology into classrooms and meeting rooms that I have worked on is Diigo. Diigo has evolved from a simple bookmarking tool into a collaborative destination for collecting, commenting on, and sharing information online. Users add the Diigo bookmarklet to their browser's bookmark tab and then use it to save pages to a personal library section on Diigo. When you find a web page worth bookmarking, just click on the Diigolet button to add a sticky note to the page. Highlight certain keywords in one of 4 colors and save it to your Diigo library. Users can also designate the page as something to read later or share it with other users via Facebook, Twitter, or email. You can also search for content through Diigo using Google or by typing in a term and searching other users' bookmark libraries. Kids can learn how to manage online content with Diigo's various features. They can search for, bookmark, organize, annotate, collaborate, and share resources they find online. They can also learn about numerous subjects by conducting searches with Google or other users' libraries. Diigo offers reading and communication skills practice to users who comment on and share bookmarked pages. It also gives teachers a way to share relevant, pre-screened website content with notes to reinforce any lessons in the text. Good research assignments can help kids learn to collaborate and express multiple viewpoints when discussing which pages are the most applicable. I highly recommend that you take a look at the link in the description below, diigo.com. Last week, we talked about Bet Asia and my take on face-to-face learning events. If you're interested in learning more, go back and listen to last week's episode. This week, I wanted to talk about your feedback on face-to-face learning and conferences and dive into some ideas that you shared. Tom from the UAE said, "The days of sending staff around the world are gone, in my opinion. Why would any school in their right mind send staff to another country to learn when learning is accessible within our own school building, in the area, or online at the touch of a button? It's time to change." Thanks, Tom. Powerful stuff. While I agree that rethinking the way we spend our budgets, I do think there's some power in face-to-face connections for networking, as highlighted in last week's episode. Erin from New Zealand said, "Our cluster of schools has agreed to pool our money, invest in online solutions, and bring in experts rather than send people out. We have a focus each term and our experts match our needs. We do the outreach and bring in virtually or physically to support the bulk of our staff. Online learning supports everyone and everything else in between. It has been a refreshing change for most of us." Thanks, Erin. I love the model, and I can't wait to chat more about the work you're doing. I also understand the "most of us" comment. These things are not going to always support everybody. The best we can do is listen, learn, and adapt. And finally, Hannah, who's based in China, said, "I've lived as an expat teacher in China for 4 years now, and things have changed considerably. We do not have access to quality learning at the touch of a button, apart from the expertise of our staff. As a small school, our budgets are not big enough to fly people in, nor are they big enough to send our staff out. For the last 3 years, we've done everything in-house. COVID has forced us to use what is at our fingertips. It took us a long time to adapt, but now we're in a good place. It's not easy learning through a device and teaching through a device, but we have to realize that changing ways. As countries start to open up, I think a hybrid learning space, as you highlighted in the episode last week, Craig, is the way to go. We have to take advantage of quality online learning spaces and build a culture of learning in our buildings in order to thrive. Thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate this, and I can't even imagine what you've gone through with COVID, being isolated for so long. As we say in New Zealand, kia kaha, which means be strong. Thank you to everyone who reached out and for sharing your thoughts. To learn more, please connect and follow on your social channel of choice, and don't hesitate to reach out with your thoughts and ideas. Every week, I bring you a short interview with some of my edu heroes, an engaging learning conversation with someone who makes a difference in education every day, with a particular focus or angle towards educational technology. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with Michael Cohen. Let's have a listen to the chat. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Michael Cohen, who many of you will know as @TheTechRabbi on Twitter with over 27,000 followers. Michael and I have been connected for many years, and I'm constantly inspired by his work and sharing in this space. Michael is a designer, educator, and co-founder of Ed3 Educators, a global community dedicated to reimagining education through the magic of Web3. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk about education and technology integration?
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to chat. And I was trying to remember the last time we had a chance to record a conversation. It was a good couple years ago, so I'm excited for part two.
Yeah, man, there's a lot's changed since then, so it's an exciting time to be able to reconnect. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
My current role is just another iteration of what I've been doing for probably about the past 8 years, which is this Director of Innovation title. So I was recruited by a school in Miami Beach after assuming this role for a number of years in LA schools. It lets me really explore the boundaries of what is possible beyond traditional learning experiences for students. So what does STEM look like in the real world, and we're actually trying to apply it beyond just raw skills? What does entrepreneurial thinking and acts of entrepreneurship look like? And really just how can we make our students more creative and curious? And so I do that pretty much full time, but for some reason, full time for me isn't full time enough. And so, in my spare time, I've been on an adventure since probably about May 2021, trying to understand this new Web3 iteration of the internet. And trying to find ways to apply it in education. I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit later, but those are really the two focuses. So the Tech Rabbi is obsessed with Web3, and my day job is, working in a K-12 institution trying to bring innovation to students.
Man, the work that you do is so inspiring. I don't know how you do it all. Prior to pushing record on this, we were talking about the multitude of things that you do, and it really is inspirational, Michael. People listening here, we won't even get into half of the things that you do in your time, as well as being, a family man, a dad, and all of those other things that sometimes we have to stop and prioritize. And that's what we were talking about prior to recording is, that work-life balance. I'm really curious about this Web3 space, Michael. We're starting to see it pop up a lot online. It's becoming more than just a buzzword now. And many educators listening here will probably have a limited understanding of Web3 and the metaverse. What's the best way to describe these for those that have never heard of it before?
So Web3 is a opportunity for users of the internet to not just be creators and curators and community builders, all of these things that exist already in Web2. And just a disclaimer, for me and the time I've spent in the space, we're definitely not in Web3. We're aiming for Web3. We're probably in like Web 2.35. I feel like it's an iOS update, but the Web3 ethos, the conceptualization of Web3 is this idea of ownership. That the things, the content, the data, the experiences, we actually own those, and they carry us. They carry on with us, and that is something that is not true of Web2. Web2, the data is owned by these massive companies that use the data, use our well-being as well to ensure that there's profitability. And so that profitability is something that can potentially be put in the hands of the users of the internet at large, as well as the decision and the choice how that data is accessible and distributed. Trying to find ways, of course, to bring that into education in an authentic way. And it doesn't always have to end up being, well, let's do a Web3 project or project based learning Web3. It can very much be a serious intellectual journey into how the future of the internet is evolving so that our students can be well versed in the technology and also start to focus some more evergreen types of strategies and sets of skills that have been pretty constant in the evolution of the internet, so that even if Web3 disappears, those skills will live on because we've already seen the past 2 decades storytelling, community building, marketing, communication, design, art, like all of these things exist, and Web3 is amplifying all of those.
I love that explanation, Michael. It's really important for people to not just hear that, but actually dive deeper into that and use this as a springboard into jumping into this space. It doesn't mean that you have to be fully immersed in it, but I think you're doing yourself and your students a disservice if you don't have an understanding at least of Web3 and what is coming, because there are some big changes on the horizon. There's a lot of amazing stuff happening behind the scenes, and you're involved in one of those major projects. You're the co-founder of Ed3 Educators. Tell us about this, Michael. What's happening in this space for you?
I'm really excited. I'm really hopeful, and I enjoy the curiosity that comes with this new, not just a space. It's like an ever evolving type of experience. But the reason that I say all of that is that I've had two sort of strong feelings about ed tech and technology and education at large. So there is definitely a desire to make education fun and exciting, and bringing in technology is a way to do that. But we definitely saw over the years, things like virtual reality and augmented reality really promise some incredible ways of disrupting education, and it never really quite got there. I think now, over the past probably 3 or 4 years, but I definitely remember, having an obsession with these types of technology experiences, and it didn't quite get to where we hoped it got to. And I think that with Web3, what I'm excited about is not necessarily that I'm early, because being early is also stressful. People are like, why are you focusing on this? Is this even like a priority? There's so many other important things, especially, given, COVID and recovering from a really challenging couple years, as educators and as an institution of education. But what I think is important for educators to understand when we look at how Web3 can help build community, how it can build experiences, whether it's the Ed3 Educator Project, the Ed3 DAO, which is this decentralized community of educators, is about finding ways that we can help our students take advantage of having a head start in the future of the internet, where we really missed the bar with social and creator content type platforms. It wasn't about like how to become an influencer or like how to get followers, but how to create content, how to tell a story, how to identify skills and ideas and insights that could bring value, and get to practicing those types of experiences, which doesn't mean, okay, third grade classroom, we're all going to create videos and we're going to put them on YouTube and put you as a third grader out into the world. Like, no, not necessarily. But there are definitely ways that we miss the mark in taking that serious. And we see the gig and creator economy are now billion-dollar industries, and there are tons of people that are making a successful living creating and doing what they love. So Web3, we can't miss that mark. We can't ignore it. We can't say, well, crypto's a scam and this and that, and it's not authentic, it's not real, it's just a fad. They said that about the internet at large, right? You can watch videos, interviews when people were mocking Jeff Bezos, the idea that people are going to buy things on the internet. Like, you have to critically evaluate and critically think about this. So it's not, the tech rabbi saying just believe in this and go all in, but you have to help your students make sense of that. And the only way to do that is for you as an educator to make sense of it. And so being part of communities and gatherings and conversations around what Web3 is, what's the potential, what's the possibility, what's the upside, what's the downside, what is the digital safety, digital literacy, financial literacy, all of these elements about it. And Ed3 does that. Ed3 Educators is focused on providing the community and really the space to explore this.
Yeah, super exciting, Michael. And on top of everything else you do, and we're only scratching the surface here, you're a published author. Tell us a little bit about your book and why we should be engaging there.
I wrote a book called Educated by Design. January 1st, 2019, it was released. And it was really a moment of me trying to capture the way in which I look at creativity, which I think is very different than many do. And there are amazing creative minds in art and design and industry that I saw a pattern, and I thought, well, what if we could find a way to capture this in education and really provide those opportunities for not just educators to reveal their creativity, because I think that educators have such a powerful creative expression to captivate and build curiosity and excitement in young learners. But then how do you build that with students? So I captured 10 principles of creativity in a book to really show that creativity isn't art or music or some sort of expression, but it's a thought process, and it's a way of dealing and interacting and interfacing with the world and with others. It's still an awesome moment for me because I think that those that read the book really appreciate the insights, the stories, the practical lessons and activities. What has been hard for me, though, as we talk about creativity, is that educators' creativity was really sucked out of them over the past couple years. And so even though there was this moment of like everyone was excited and energized, and then it's like, no, now we just have to figure out how to like set Zoom up for 25 third graders or 25 kindergartners, right? Like this is pre-K. I mean, I had a year two kindergartner son going, in the height of the pandemic, so I can empathize and sympathize with educators. But the book was really about that creative process, and I think educators are excited again about it, and people in Web3 as well, as I interface in that community, are also surprised. Like, I wrote this book, and they're excited about it as well.
Yeah, it's super exciting, mate. And we'll make sure the link to all of the stuff you talk about here in the podcast notes here, so people listening can jump in and explore and take a look at your work, because it is truly inspirational. Let's jump into some quick fire questions. First thing that comes to your head, and maybe a brief why. What's your favorite EdTech book or resource?
It's funny. It sounds like messed up because I'm like so involved in this EdTech space, but I don't really read EdTech books. I feel like I read books about different types of strategies in education and different types of movements, and I think I lean more towards the resource. And I think that resource wise, it sounds kind of crazy, but the thing that excites me the most when I think about resources is Twitter, right? Because it's like, is Twitter a tool? I mean, it's an app, but it's really a place where content is shared in a way where it's instantly validated whether it's good or not. And I think, for better or for worse, the education community is very open and honest and critical, constructively critical, or maybe not constructively critical, about content that's put out there. But I think that when I look back at the most value I've got, whether it's finding blog articles or lesson ideas or connecting with other educators that I can learn from, I think that Twitter is definitely that resource.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. What about any other EdTech tools that the listeners might like to try? Maybe things that you use in your daily practice in your school or your students engage with and love. Is there anything that you would like to shout out to as well?
I love Wakelet, and I have used Wakelet in a couple different ways. And I think that one of the things that's really powerful about it is just the sheer magnitude of curation that is possible with it. And whether it's in my own professional development or whether it's, capturing, a series of different content types for my students, I feel like it's different than a Google Doc. It's different than a website or a blog. It allows you to copy and paste any type of content and curate a really powerful, sort of artifact series. And I think that a solid second place is going to be Microsoft Flip, because I just, once again, if I can give my students a voice or give them a different way to respond and engage in conversation, it's going to be meaningful for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Two really amazing tools that we'll link to here, but I've had good experience using them as well, and I fully endorse those shout outs. What's one daily habit or practice, Michael, that helps you enjoy, progress, and succeed in your career?
I'm trying to reel in, my professional experiences, so to speak. And I think the thing that I do right now that is really important, I think it's important for educators that, whether you're a classroom educator that has 30 to 200 students that you're responsible for, educating and supporting, or whether you're, a content creator as a side hustle, or wherever you are in your education journey, I think being able to reflect at night and just kind of take a few minutes, put the phone away, and just look for the positives. I think right now is something that many times we get caught up in, we got to be better. We're always, I think educators are naturally self-critical because if our students aren't succeeding, we take responsibility. So being able to have that, we went through the whole day, and let's find and celebrate and appreciate the good that's occurred, because I don't think we get a chance enough to celebrate and really acknowledge that in ourselves.
Yeah, very, very cool. Michael, what's the best way for listeners to follow and connect with you? Because you've shared so much insight here. I know there's people that are going to want to chat and learn more. How can they do that?
Well, The Tech Rabbi is on basically every platform. If you find my account and ping me, those that are listening. But the best platform to really engage with me is Twitter. DMs are open, or just tweet at me with a question, with an idea, and happy to connect and keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Michael, thank you so much for your time today. Super inspirational.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great to connect again and have this conversation.
This week, join me for episode 109 of the Ignite EdTech Podcast, when I'm joined by Brandy Wright. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow us and share the podcast with your PLN and colleagues. Please remember to spend a few minutes to rate this podcast too on your podcast channel of choice, so we can reach even more educators and EdTech enthusiasts globally. Remember, you have the chance to win as well. Check out the links in the description for more, and I'll see you again next week.
If you liked today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and be in the drawing to win prizes every week. If you know others that would enjoy the show, please hit that share button and brighten their day. Join us again next week for your weekly EdTech hit with @Mr. Kemp NZ. We'll see you again soon.